a book. One of the many ways in which stories are told. Some stories happy, and others sad.
But none are more magical
than the tale of the secret island. Thomas the Tank Engine, the #1 blue train on Sodor, understands the value of friends. On Sodor there are many different faces and places. Thomas has many different friends as he runs along his branch line. Hello! Thomas loves his jobs on his branch line, but sometimes he can get a little bored and longs for a change. And today, he got one. Thomas saw Gordon, Henry and James. "Hello, what are you three talking about?" said Thomas. "We're talking about the VIP," said Gordon. "The one I'm taking later. Well, tomorrow." "Rubbish." "No, you're not." "Oh, I wish I could take him." "Don't be so silly. Carry on with your work. You've got work to do on your branch line. Off you go." Thomas felt heard. "You're so vain, Gordon." "Speak for yourself." Thomas kept thinking about the VIP and got distracted. The trucks started to make their plans. The coupling was stuck, and then it snapped. Thomas was out of control and running away down the line. "Oh no!" he cried. He went straight off the rails and through a fence. He slithered down a slope and up an old bridge. The top of the bridge snapped and tilted. Thomas tilted with it, and then he went straight down into an old tunnel and straight through a rock. Thomas didn't know where he was now. "Where am I?" he cried. He looked around. There was no one there. It was very empty and very, very quiet. Suddenly, a diesel burst out of the bushes behind him. "Help!" cried Thomas. Thomas reversed backwards and followed a line across the bridge. He went straight through a rock and disappeared. He reappeared somewhere else and found himself back where he was. Bust my buffers!
Later, Thomas pulled into Tidmouth's sheds. "I found a secret island," he said. But the others just ignored him. They were too busy talking about who was taking Michael the next day. Thomas was cross. Poor Percy didn't even realise what was going on. He was doing his late-night shift. No one was around, just Percy. But the engines were arguing so much at Tidmouth's sheds that the fat controller had to come and tell them off and sort the trouble out once and for all. He pulled up in his car. "Why would the fat controller choose you? You're vain." "I know, but I don't care."
"Neither do I, but it's me. I'm the important one.
Oh, here we go.
To take him."
"Would you just stop?"
"Silence!"
All the engines stopped at once. Gordon went quiet. Emily sniggered.
"Now, what is all this fuss and bother? You're causing confusion. Now then, I'm going to settle this whether you like it or not, big or small. Now, from what I can see, I'm going to choose Henry. Henry is the one that's taking Michael tomorrow." Henry beamed. Thomas was shocked and James was sad. Gordon grunted. Percy didn't even realise. He had stopped at a junction. He was on his way back home. The signal was red and Percy was scared. No one was around. Suddenly something crashed through the level crossing. "What is that?" he cried. Then around a corner sped a large cross diesel. "Bust my buffers!" The fat controller was on his own as well. The diesel glared at the fat controller's car.
the Fat Controller crossed the level crossing and stopped. I need to go to McDonald's. The railway's the quickest way. The Diesel slithered past. He was behind the Fat Controller's car. The Fat Controller suddenly realised, oh my goodness, I'm being followed. And he was. The Fat Controller tried to speed up, and he did, to the edge of a cliff. The Diesel glided away. But the Fat Controller's car was nowhere to be seen. The next day, Thomas puffed into the yards. Henry was getting ready to take the special visitor. Just you look at my coat, I'm splendid. His coat of paint gleamed in the sun. Thomas was shocked. James was very jealous. Just then, Percy pulled into the yards with the Fat Controller's car. What is that? Said Thomas. It's the Fat Controller's car. It was found this morning, said Percy. James was surprised. Well, I can't stop, said Percy, and he puffed away. Well, I don't have time to worry about the Fat Controller's car. I have to get ready because Oh! Henry had crashed into the paint truck. Paint had splattered down him. I'll take him, said James. Oh no! James had derailed. It's my turn now, said Thomas. I'll take him. Look out! Cried Emily. But poor Thomas had derailed. Bother! Silly pond! Thomas was disappointed. I'll take him now, said Emily, and she puffed away. Toby had seen Thomas's accident, and he reversed to save Thomas. Thank you, Toby. Toby puffed and heaved and pulled as hard as he could. Then eventually Thomas's wheels began to come out of the sticky mud and back onto the rails. At last Thomas was saved. Thank you, said Thomas. Thank you, Toby. Emily was collecting Michael. She was on her way to the station. I'm almost there, she said. Then she approached the platform. Michael was waiting for her. Get in! And Emily steamed away. Meanwhile, Thomas was heading for Rosie's rock shop. He wanted to see Michael when he arrived. I mustn't be late, thought Thomas as he puffed across the bridge. At last he steamed into Rosie's rock shop. No one was there. Rheneas was on an old truck. What's Rheneas doing there? Thought Thomas. I don't have time to find out. I must hurry. As Thomas puffed along, he was worried. I hope Rheneas is all right, he thought. At the yards, all the engines were waiting for Michael. They were all talking about him when at last they heard a whistle. Here she comes, said James, and in pulled Emily with the special coach. Lady Hat arrived to greet Michael out of the train. Thomas puffed in. Am I late? Oh no, I've missed him. Lady Hat was driving Caroline up the hill and back to their house. Caroline was their replacement car. Bother! Now I'll never meet Michael. The Fat Controller was in hospital. His wife came in to see him. Hello, Margie. You come to see me, have you? Give us a kiss. Topham, stop! I've closed the blinds, now lie back down. You need your rest. It's been like this all day, said Thomas to Percy. I hope he's better soon, said Percy. He will be. These things take time, said Thomas. I remember seeing something strange last night. What was it? Said Thomas anxiously. It was a blue diesel, and he had a yellow face. That must be the diesel I saw in the secret island. He must have followed me back to Sodor. Oh, what shall I do? Thomas, he means trouble. You need to sort this out. It's all your fault. I know, said Thomas sadly. He was upset. That night, Thomas puffed into Timothy's sheds. Oh dear. What? Oh, nothing. James, where are you going? James, where are you going? Bust my buffers! What's going on? What's that? Leave me alone! Go away! Go! Leave me! Cinders and ashes! It was just a dream.
Thomas spent the day with Michael. Michael was his driver for the day, as his driver was sick. Thomas tried to show off. I wonder how I can make myself look really, really reliable. Thomas didn't know how, but he set to work anyway. I must go slowly and steadily, said Thomas. Then he arrived back at Rosie's rock shop. Rheneas was on the sidings. Thomas stopped. So, what's wrong with you? Said Thomas. I don't feel good, said Rheneas. I don't know what it is. Oh, I must find out what it is, said Thomas. Goodbye, Rheneas. Goodbye. Thomas set off down the line. Meanwhile, at the mountain railway, Peter Sam was working at the incline. He had to do Rheneas' jobs as well as his own, and whilst he was working on the incline, Sir Handel was working with the passengers. Thomas arrived at the station to speak to him. Oh, hello, Thomas. Is Rheneas better yet? Said Thomas. No, he doesn't stop moaning. He's really fussy, he is. Anyway, I can't stop, Thomas. I must keep time, you know.
Sir Handel puffed off with his passengers. It was a rather windy day, but he carried on with his usual jobs. After his work, he pulled into the sidings of Cronin's Gate. That's strange, said Sir Handel. Rheneas isn't here. His driver saw a note flapping about in the wind. He went over and ripped it off. After he read the note, he looked very worried. This will explain where Rheneas is. There's a note from the scrapyard saying he'll be scrapped tonight. Peter San was working at the incline. Sir Handel rushed over to Peter San. Hello, Sir Handel. Rheneas is going to be scrapped, said Sir Handel. We must go and help him, said Peter San, and he left his trucks and hurried away to the scrapyard. They found Rheneas in a siding, but the diesels outside had spotted the engines going in.
Get them.
The scrapyard doors opened and two smaller engines on the narrow gauge tracks buffered up behind Sir Handel and Peter San. What's that? Who's that? Get off! The two engines started pulling them back, but Sir Handel fought back with his steamroller wheels. Just give up, he's gone, said the engine. Sir Handel had lost. It was too late. Rheneas was in pieces.
No!
See what you've done?
I only did it for the good of the railway,
said the Fat Controller. Peter Sam had gone off on his own. He dropped his fireman off and went to a peaceful part of the line where he could relax. He needed to be alone. He found a siding next to Mr. Percival's house where the buffers were.
"I don't come here very often," he said. "It's nice and peaceful." Then Thomas arrived. "Hello, Peter Sam. Renee's has been scrapped." "What?" said Thomas. "Oh my goodness." Just then some pieces of debris flew past them. "Oh my goodness, what is that?" The orange pieces flew into the buffers. "They must be magic buffers," said Thomas. "Magic buffers?" "Yes, they must go to the secret island. I've been there before." "That must be where the other engines are. I must go there." "Be careful, and I'll meet you there," said Thomas. "Okay." "I'm nervous," he said, "but I'm going to save Rusty, Scarloey, and Duncan. I could save these friends." Then he disappeared.
Thomas knew he would have to meet Peter Sam, so he raced off down the line.
It won't take long, don't worry, Michael,
he said. But Thomas didn't notice a light in the distance until it was too late. Michael stopped Thomas and they reversed into a siding. Just in time to see the diesel roll past.
"Bust my buffers," said Thomas.
That diesel means trouble. Peter Sam had arrived in the secret island. The track he was on was flooded. He didn't like it at all. Everything was overgrown and very deserted. "I hope Thomas finds me," said Peter Sam, as he struggled on through the water. The track sunk into the marsh, but he pressed on.
"I hope my friends are here, otherwise, I don't know what will happen to me."
Buildings were deserted, and old trucks lay by the tracks.
"I'm not afraid,"
said Peter Sam. But Peter Sam secretly was. He only had his driver for company. "Maybe I am a bit then," he said to himself. His driver stopped him at a junction. They could hear a noise in the distance. "I can hear wheels rolling," he said to his driver. They looked around. Suddenly, they could hear the noise coming closer.
"Oh no," said Peter Sam. "At least I've got my driver."
Then a light shone from down the line. It was only Duncan. "You scared me," said Peter Sam.
"I need your help," said Duncan. "The other engines do. I can't help them alone."
"Why?"
"They've been trapped. Can you help? Please, I'll show you where it is."
"Of course," said Peter Sam.
"If you show me the way." "Of course I will,"
said Duncan. And the two engines set off down the line. Further down the line, Rusty was derailed with Scarloey. They couldn't move and they needed help. "I can hear an engine." "So can I. I hope it's not the diesel." Luckily it wasn't. It was Duncan and Peter Sam. "Thank goodness you're here. You must help." And so they did. Their drivers attached chains between both engines, and soon they were reversing to pull them back onto the tracks. Thank you. Both engines were very grateful, but Peter Sam was very curious. "What's in that old shed?" he said to them.
Listen, Peter Sam, we don't mean to be rude, but we're not here to explore. We must get out of here. But Peter Sam was too curious, and he went down an old line. His driver coupled up to an old object. He started pulling it out. The object rattled as they pulled it out. They didn't know what it was until they could see his nameplate. And on the side read Duke. It can't be. "Oh, hello," said Duke. "Oh, Grandpuff, you're still surviving." "Oh, shut up," said Duke. "Now come on, we need to get out of here." "Yes, we do, but we don't know the way." "What do you mean, you don't know the way?" "Can't we just go back the way we came?" "No, that's the way in, not the way out," said Rusty. "I know the way out, I think. If you follow me." All the engines were lined up. Duke had to be pulled by Peter Sam. Now, I may have to warn you about something fairly tragic. Rheneas has been scrapped. Me and Sir Handel, we tried to save him, but we were too late. I'm sorry to tell you all this, but it just saves the surprise. "You liar," said Rusty. "How could you say something like that?" "It's true. I wouldn't joke." The engines fell silent as they rushed off to find the exit. Back on Sodor, Thomas was trying to find the line that went to the secret island. But the Diesel was hiding in a siding just outside of Rosie's rock shop. An old bridge was supported there and was hanging dangerously over the line. The narrow gauge track beside it was closed because of this. The Diesel was waiting for Thomas to arrive. As Thomas sped down the line, he crashed into the rock, and Boulder started moving. The chains came undone, and Boulder rolled towards the old bridge. It smashed into the support and fell over Thomas's line, just missing him. The Diesel was disappointed and rolled away. Thomas was very surprised. "Bust my buffers," he said. "What was that?" The Diesel was now out of sight, and the bridge and Boulder had ruined everything. The Fat Controller was most annoyed. "Thomas, I don't know what you think you're doing, going around trashing the island. We're all sad Rheneas is gone, but this attitude does not show the appreciation of my railway. It will take a long time to clear this up."
"It wasn't us."
"Sir, it wasn't us, be quiet. You got nothing to do with it." Thomas thought it was best to say nothing. Harvey arrived to clear the mess, and Jack and Alfie worked together to clear off the mud. Jack loaded Percy's trucks full of mud and went back to get the rest. Both friends worked hard as Harvey pulled the boulder back onto its perch. Then, both Jack and Alfie lifted the bridge section together and put it back upright so that everything was safe again. "Perfect," said Jack. "Now wasn't that fun?" he said to Alfie. Sir Handel puffed in. "What do you think?" said Jack. But Sir Handel wasn't smiling. "Well, if you knew what the Fat Controller had done, you probably wouldn't have helped." "What do you mean?" said Percy. He was very confused. "What, haven't you heard? The Fat Controller scrapped Rheneas earlier." Jack fell silent.
Later that day, Jack and Alfie were loaded onto flatbeds for Thomas to take away. He was to take them back to Miss Jenny. "Thank you for helping," said Thomas. "I'm sorry about the bad news. None of us are happy about it, really." And Thomas steamed away. Later that day, he puffed back down the line to have a rest. He was very tired. He joined his friends in the siding. But something was following him. "What's that noise?" said Percy. "I don't know," said Thomas. "I can't hear anything." "Well, I can," said James, and around the corner sped the large cross diesel. "Tell me where your fare controller is now." Thomas tried to be brave, but when he saw the spike on top of him, he decided to change his mind. Henry started to panic. Thomas didn't know what to say. "He's in his office," said Thomas. "If you're lying," said the diesel, "I will come back and scrap you. You're safe." The Fat Controller, of course, wasn't in his office. He was watching the lake, when suddenly a man came over to talk to him. "Excuse me, sir. We'd like you to see some video footage." "Ooh, video footage," said the Fat Controller. Soon he was in the man's office. "Now this video footage was taken the night of your accident," he said, and he played it. "I know that diesel." The Fat Controller hurried over to the engines. "Now if you see a blue diesel with a yellow face, you must tell me straight away." Percy looked at Thomas. Thomas knew what he was thinking. He would have to meet Peter Sam and try and fix things once and for all. So that night he persuaded Michael to go to the secret island, and Thomas found the hill that he had gone down before. At last, he thought, I can solve things once and for all. He rushed down the old hill and up the bridge again, and into the secret island. "Here we go," he said. "This is the secret island, Michael," he said. "Now all I have to do now is find the way. I hope I can find Peter Sam." Suddenly, Thomas came to a stop. He had gone down the wrong track. Michael had stopped him just before the cliff edge. Thomas was surprised. "I hope I do find Peter Sam," he said. "He must be alone and lost. I must head straight back to those points and go down the other track," he said. But Thomas became lost once again. Suddenly he landed onto another track. "Cinders and ashes," he said. Then, there in front of him was an old tunnel entrance. It led under the ground. Thomas was very curious. He wanted to go inside, but after all, he would have to ask Michael. "Do you think it'll be all right?" he said.
This is the only way to go. We're going to have to go this way, Thomas.
Thomas was pleased, but he was very nervous when he got to the entrance. "Bust my buffers," he said to himself. "Oh, help!" he cried. He rattled down an old track and managed to stop just as a chain caught hold of his funnel. He opened his eyes once more and realized that the chain had stopped him from verging into an object. The object was in fact an old engine lying on its own. Thomas was surprised. Michael unattached the chain from his funnel to free him. "Can you help me get out of here, please?" said the engine. "Yes, I can," said Thomas, and he buffered up to the engine and started pushing him out. Thomas crashed through some bushes and out into the open air. "My name's Thomas, by the way," said Thomas. "And my driver's called Michael. He's very kind." "My name's Stanley," said the engine. Meanwhile, back on Sodor, all the engines were looking for Thomas. They knew the diesel swore revenge if he was lying about the Fat Controller. And Thomas was being followed by the diesel. He had gone through into the secret island once more. "Stanley, we're being followed," he cried. But Stanley's old coupling could not hold, and it snapped.
Stanley headed straight towards the old bridge. "Oh no," he cried. The bridge started to creak. It bent in the middle, but luckily Stanley made it back through the magic rock. The bridge had now swayed to the side, and Thomas wouldn't be able to cross. It suddenly gave way. "Jump!" cried Thomas. He flew straight over the cliff edge and onto the other side. Meanwhile, the narrow gauge engines had found their bridge, but it had collapsed. "Oh no," cried Duke, "it's gone." Peter Sam went to the edge. He called for Thomas, but Thomas had already gone back to Sodor. "Oh no," cried Peter Sam, "Thomas is gone." But even though they had given up hope, the narrow gauge engines fought through to find another way back. "What's that noise?" cried Duncan. "I can hear it too," said Scarloey. Then suddenly pieces of debris built up in front of Peter Sam and magically moulded back together. "No way. That's impossible." "No, it isn't," said Rheneas. "He's back." On Sodor, Stanley had just come through out of the magic rock. He was waiting for Thomas to come too, but he feared he may not have made it. Suddenly he heard a rush, and out came Thomas. "Bust my buffers, that was close," said Thomas. "I do fear the diesel may return again. Something tells me that there are more ways to get there." "Thomas, calm down," said Stanley. "You have been such a good friend to me, but I could do with a mend." "Yes, of course," said Thomas. "I'll take you to the works right away." He buffered up to Stanley and started pushing him back down the line towards the works. Stanley pulled into the works with Thomas. Toby was there too. "Hello, I'm Stanley," said Stanley to Toby. "Oh, hello," said Toby. "I'm from the secret island, the island that Thomas found," he started explaining. This is Toby," said Thomas, "and Toby, that's Stanley." "Yes, I did explain that, Thomas." "What are you going to do about Peter Sam? Are you going to leave him there? I know you saved me, I'm sure you can save him too." "You're right, Stanley. I do need to go back. But it's going to be hard. I wish I could help, Thomas," said Toby. "But, I can't move at the moment." "No, Toby, this is my fault. I need to go and get him." "Good luck," the engines called as Thomas reversed back towards the secret island. Thomas tried to go back through the rock, but it wouldn't let him. "Cinders and ashes, I can't get back," he cried. Thomas tried it again. Suddenly the diesel came out of the rock behind him. He had jumped over the cliff edge. "I'm gonna get you now," he said to Thomas. Thomas raced as fast as he could down the line. "Oh, we must warn the Fat Controller," he said. The Fat Controller saw Thomas, and Michael explained what was going on. Then they ran off, leading the diesel behind. Thomas was worried. He didn't have a plan. Then suddenly he realized he was on the track that led back to the secret island. He was about to head down the hill and through the magic portal. "Maybe I can get rid of him this way," he thought to himself. "Of course, it's worth a try," and he raced down the hill. "Oh, I do hope I can save Peter Sam as well." Thomas entered the secret island, with the diesel following behind. "Oh, brilliant," he said. "I believe I'm on the right track to finding them." As Thomas rounded the bend, there they were. Thomas was especially surprised to see Rheneas, the engine who recovered from scrap. "Hello," said Rheneas. "Flatten my funnel," cried Thomas. "How have you survived?" He reversed and saw Duke. "Where have you been all these years?" "Hello," said Duke. "Well, I've been here." So that would explain where you went. Suddenly, the diesel was coming behind Thomas. "Thomas, the diesel's coming, you must run." "Okay, I need you to look for another bridge. It will lead back across the line. I saw a narrow gauge track where the rock is. Please, try." "You heard what he said," said Rheneas. "We must find another line. Hopefully there's another way back to Sodor." So the engines raced off together to find another exit. Thomas's wheels were whirring as fast as they could, but Thomas didn't think it would be fast enough. As the narrow gauge engines rattled through an old tunnel, they found themselves near the cliff edge, where Thomas's bridge was. Thomas jumped for the second time. "Oh no, I haven't made it," he cried. He was now jammed on the cliff face. "Oh no," he cried, "how am I going to get back?" Meanwhile, the narrow gauge engines had found another bridge. "Come on, let's go, come on!" As the diesel came up behind Thomas, jumped the gap once more, this time just missing. But he stabbed his stabber into the rock and held himself steady. The diesel had not fallen, but he was insecure. The rocks underneath Thomas's wheels started to crumble. They flew past the diesel and splashed into the water below. "This is urgent, we must pull Thomas back again," he said. They veered round to where Thomas was waiting. But the diesel started to pull himself back up with the stabber. "Oh, you're here, well done," said Thomas. They used an old chain to couple up to Thomas, and were soon pulling him back onto the tracks. "Thank you," said Thomas. The little engine struggled as they tried to pull the big heavy engine back onto the track. "One last pull," they cried, and they got Thomas back up, just as another rock fell and smashed into the diesel. The diesel fell into the sea below and disappeared. The engines cheered. They had made it back to Sodor, and the diesel was now gone. Harold the helicopter found them. "Ah, good to see you, splendid. Ah, this is brilliant. How has this happened?" "By me," said Thomas. Soon, the news was spreading down the line. All of Thomas's friends had found out about Rheneas and Stanley. Thomas took Michael to see the Fat Controller.
In the night garden. Sir.
What do you want? Oh,
Sir, Rheneas has returned with the other engines.
we must have a party.
Soon, all the engines were preparing for the Fat Controller's party. The party to welcome home the return of the narrow gauge engines and, of course, the brand new engine, Stanley. It was a marvellous party. They were all waiting for the Fat Controller to start his speech. After he was finished, Thomas explained how he and the diesel were stuck on the cliff edge. "He was brilliant," said Stanley, and he told the engines everything. "You see, I was stuck on the cliff edge," said Thomas, "and the narrow gauge engines needed to pull me back. But more rocks were falling off this ridge, and the diesel started pulling himself back up again. I didn't think I'd make it, but the last rock fell and smashed into the diesel, and he fell into the sea below.
I knew that, Diesel, said the Fat Controller.
And he started to explain everything.
It was a long time ago. He was a brand new Diesel. He worked by memory, and he needed no driver to work. I feared he'd be a threat to the railway, so I sent him into the island.
The engines were surprised.
I would also like to say, Rheneas, that I sent you to the scrapyard to be mended. I have no idea as to who declared you as scrap, but I want all my engines to know that dark times are ahead of us. Though I am very grateful that all of you narrow gauge engines have come back, and that Stanley is now part of my railway.
The engines cheered for the narrow gauge engine Stanley and Thomas. Thomas whistled happily. The next day, Thomas said goodbye to Michael as Gordon departed from the station. Michael peered out of the window until the carriage was out of sight. It's a shame he had to go, Mavis. Remember, you have got Stanley now. Oh, thank you, Mavis. You make me feel so much better. A line now runs off from Thomas's branch line into the secret island. Thomas's friends are kept busy, taking campers there in the summer, though no one lives there. Thomas often wonders how fate had been on his side. Even so, it remains a mystery as to what saved Rheneas from scrap. Both Thomas and Stanley believe it to be the magic of the secret island, saving engines in distress. Of course, no engine can explain the miraculous event. And for now, this book remains a happy one, until its final chapters are one day unleashed. Thomas, he's a friend, he chuffed around the bend, found a brand new friend, and brought him home again. You know that he would pull through by being really useful. The secret island, magical world, where Thomas released a melody zone. Back on Sodor, the engines feared not. The Fat Controller was in danger. Thomas decided to save him and all of the narrow gauge engines. Yeah, the secret island, magical world, where Thomas left a new diesel. Island, magical world, where Thomas left a new diesel. Thomas the tank engine, number one, ready for the action, every day.
He will steam away.